Hi,
Hey,
I'm Julia,
and I'm Amanda,
and this is Much Needed Advice.
a podcast for people who want to know what to do.
Hi, everyone.
Hey,
We're coming at you from Bali again. We've had a really fun trip and interviewed a lot of incredible people, including this episode's guest, Scotty.
listen to this episode if you've ever had the urge to break out of your comfort zone, if you've ever had the urge to live in another country, if you feel like you need to break out of your comfort zone, and
And if you want to break out of your comfort zone, this is the one for you.
if you've ever had the urge to live in a different country, to discover how happy you could really be in life, you feel like you should just break out of your comfort zone. Anyway, enjoy the episode. Good night.
I mean,
Are we doing Scotty a disservice?
we can try to do a real one and we can listen to both.
Okay.
Need to do some breath work.
Scotty was great. I can't do it. I can't do it. Everyone can get something valuable out of this episode, especially those who are trying to get out of their comfort zone.
So without further ado, Scotty.
That was the cutest mic drop sound I've ever heard. Julia and Scott go way back. How did you guys meet again?
We met at another cafe here in Ubud. Do you remember what it was called? Timu Cafe.
I give it a
You hated
4
it.
out of 10. But we'll get back to me later before I enter the picture.
Right. How did this happen?
I'll tell you how it happened.
Yeah.
Scott and I were sitting next to each other for an entire hour and did not look at each other or speak to each other. And then a bug landed on his eyeball.
On your actual eyeball.
Then he had to kill it, right? Because it was his arch enemy. So he did that thing where you get all ready and psyched to kill the bug and you're sneaking up on it. And then you get your moment and you do the big clap. So I just turned to him and said, "Did you get it?" I didn't know if he spoke English. And I was actually shocked that he had the same accent as us.
Yeah, that's right. Now the frustration is coming back to me because it's fine. Like, it's all these open air environments. You got to be used to bugs. Fine. Not really a big deal for me, but this one just was relentless. And then when it landed on my open eyeball, that was a line for me. I don't have a lot of boundaries, but it found it and broke it.
And is he still out there?
Still out there terrorizing whatever guest came next to order the grilled cheese at the Timu.
Let's hope he had a short lifespan. So then, just to finish the story, the part where I entered the picture, I came to the cafe. This was our first meal in Bali. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to play it safe. I'm starving. I need carbs now. So I ordered the grilled cheese, and it was the worst mistake I've ever made. I don't know how one could get a grilled cheese so wrong. And then Scott ordered the most complicated thing on the menu, and it ended up being the most delicious thing. And he gave me a bite.
And that's a good way to start any kind of friendship, is to share food.
And to bond over trauma.
to have a common enemy and to break bread together is a really good way to build a tribe. So.
Goes back centuries.
It's a classic format that we're using here to establish a friendship.
And now our trust can never be broken.
And here he is on the pod.
Scott, how would you introduce yourself?
Typically, I actually introduce myself as Scotty. That's like more of my nomad persona. When I left Canada and I started traveling, I let my hair down, like literally, and I would just cruise around with my hair down and introduce myself as Scotty. And it was like a bit of a practice in shedding the old skin and starting something new. So a lot of people who met me since 2021 have known me that way.
So you're from Vancouver and you have had this new skin since 2021. That's fairly recent.
Yes.
What in your life prompted this big transformation?
It was a lot of things happening all at once. I kickstarted my second year in lockdown by getting divorced. So if you can imagine, you're already working at home, can't see your friends or do anything, and you're living with someone where tension is rising. And then we split up 2 days before my 35th birthday. And so it started a recalibration of my entire existence. My father had passed away a couple of years before that. And that was also a big, like, who am I? What am I doing? Who am I trying to impress? Because there were really big pillars in my life. My father was a really important person. I wanted to impress him all of the time. He was very, very hard to impress. And you're supposed to have a job and stick with it and those sorts of details. And so when he passed away, it kind of was one big pillar of my life falling away. And then after I got divorced and I was with my partner for 15 years, that was another big, like, okay, everything that you once knew is no more. You can choose how this next stage or season in your life is going to unfold. So first I kind of got my shit together a little bit, tried to get in shape and focus on myself. And then I felt really lonely. I felt really lonely and I felt really ready to stop being afraid of all the things I used to be afraid of, because I grew up a bit of a coward, I would do whatever other people wanted me to do. That seemed like the easiest thing. And I never really thought about what I wanted to do. So I called my mom one day. I said, Mom, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this week. I'm just so depressed. I don't know what life means anymore. I don't know what I'm looking forward to. And she said, if I was your age and I didn't have anything holding me back, I'd move to Mexico. And I thought, okay, I'm going to move to Mexico. Sold everything I owned in 10 days, packed a bag, bought a one-way ticket on points. And
nice.
And made my way to Mexico and started my new life. And that's the long story, but the story of what changed my life and brought me to being a digital nomad.
Wow.
It's like the perfect storm of life circumstances. Can you tell us about how you've gotten work on the road or what you've done for money?
Yeah, I had a really good job back home, a career that I'd been building. But when I got fed up, I decided to quit my job. That was sort of part of my whole burn it all down, start over strategy. And I had actually, before I decided to quit my job, I asked them, I really need a break. I'd like to go finish out the year in Mexico. We're not doing any conferences. We're not meeting in the office anyway. And I got a ton of pushback. HR called me and they were like, no, you haven't filed for relocation. There is no approval for you to leave. There was a lot of kind of veiled threats that if I did this, it was going to be bad for my career. And so I kind of had this backbone all of a sudden. And I was like, all right, then I will find a new job. I will figure it out when I get down there. I will bartend in Central America for tips, whatever. So I gave my notice and I quit.
I think me and Scotty are the same person.
Amanda's crying.
I've done this twice in my life. At this job that you had, were you kind of climbing a ladder? Was there an incentive to stay that you were kind of weighing against moving to Mexico?
Yeah, absolutely. They talked to me about ownership, and I had worked my way up from basically an assistant to a director. And there was a lot of traditional career-driven incentive to stay, which was part of my paralysis that kept me locked in making really safe decisions. But I just kind of snapped. And I hope for other people who want to explode their life, I think that at any point you can choose courage. It doesn't have to be once you feel like you're up against the wall and everything's gone wrong. I think every day is an awesome day to wake up and choose yourself and choose your sort of dream. For me, it wasn't like that. For me, it was like I had to be in a nightmare type situation to finally go, all right, are you living or dying? And get some sweet advice from my mother. So yeah, when I quit my job, back to your question about how I was getting money, my company wrote me after I quit and they said, you can't quit. We'd very much prefer it if you didn't quit, which was a total different response than I got the first time when I was like, I'm out of here. And they're like, no, you can't leave. We'll fire you. And then I did the whole, you can't fire me, I quit, boob. And then,
A classic.
It's the Spider-Man meme with all the Spider-Men pointing at each other.
And after having done that, they changed their tune and they realized that I did bring value and that it didn't matter where I was, that I could provide that value. So we sat around and we negotiated. And one of the things that I pushed for was a permanent remote position. I said that I would continue to offer my subject matter expertise and my skills and my passion, but I needed to be free in choosing where I was going to do that from. And yeah, they accepted it. And also as part of that negotiation, I asked for a sabbatical, which took some time before they could offer me, but I'm actually here in Bali on that sabbatical now, the 3-month sabbatical.
Meaning like an extended PTO?
Yeah, they're paying me to not work right now, which is the best. For the first 2 weeks, I was working remotely, and my advice would be to not pick somewhere that's 15 hours off the time zone that you're working in, because my working day started at midnight and went till 8 in the morning, which is very disruptive, but there's lots of cool places in the world where you can be where that doesn't have to be an issue.
Wait, why did you have to work on your sabbatical?
We were in the middle of a very large bid, and the bid got extended, and
they wanted you to close.
They wanted me
always
to
be
close.
closing.
I'm not really a salesman, but as part of being a director,
Yeah.
you bring your subject matter expertise to help develop business, and so you wind up a little Alec Baldwin sometimes.
Yeah, that's where you become really valuable. That's where they really don't want to lose you.
That's right. I had developed a lot of relationships and a lot of trust. And I think that's a big part of the advice that I would give to other people who are thinking about that is look inside yourself at what you've done and what you can leverage. Because I think a lot of people doubt themselves. I've been through imposter syndrome so many times in my career where I've thought like, okay, now they've hired this person. They're going to fire me next week, or I'll have a bad month and I'll be like, I'm useless. It's kind of like Dread Pirate Roberts thing from The Princess Bride. You always think they're just going to kill you in the morning sort of thing. I think being in a tough relationship made it really hard for me to see my worth as well. And I think those things all go around. So practicing your self-worth in whatever format is a really powerful tool that you can then use in your career, in your negotiating with other people, with your profession, and with yourself.
Yeah, you want to put yourself, no matter where you're working now, you want to put yourself in the best possible position to have leverage.
Yeah, and just sometimes you might not know that you have leverage. A lot of us are lulled and fooled into thinking that we're expendable, replaceable, but even with AI and all these other things you see creeping into the picture, nothing beats a passionate human who takes themselves and what they do seriously. I think that will never be replaced and is actually more important maybe now than ever to be that type of skill.
And someone who has relationships with clients.
Relationships, I think any kind of relationship is something that a computer can't have, and that isn't replaceable. And companies like to think, or like to make you think, that they can just go out and hire someone else, but it's so ineffective cost-wise to replace an employee, particularly one who's been at the company for a long time. And in this kind of come back to the office phase that we're currently in, it's like the rebound from the digital nomad. A lot of people who were bold enough to make that choice are now, they're trying to spool everything back and say, well, you need to be in the office a couple days a week. I think there's a lot of ability to push back on that and rely on knowing that you bring something to the table wherever your table might be.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're getting fired, then quitting, and then not getting fired or quitting strengthened your relationship with your company. Wouldn't you say, like, created more mutual respect? No, maybe not.
Yeah, no, it's taught me, I think, how to manage my relationships better. I don't think that respect that I got in that negotiation phase was permanent or was going to last forever. I think that it was a negotiation. So there was a shared responsibility for me to mature and grow and be a better professional too, in light of them offering me a chance to continue to work.
It's almost like the pressure increased for you to continue to deliver at the same level and really prove your point.
The most so while I was negotiating. The clock is ticking down. I've given them 8 weeks notice. In the meantime, I'm not phoning it in. I'm working really hard. I'm driving business forward. And I'm demonstrating to them that they put me in this position, that I like this job and I'm passionate about this job, but you've left me with no choice. This isn't how I would have preferred for it to go, but I have to stand up for myself in a soul sense. And like, I'm not a super religious person, but you feel that yearning to be free or to be you or to shake the cobwebs loose. And I think during that period, showing them that I was still able to perform at a really high level, like I wasn't going to let them down, that was a big silent part of the negotiation for sure. And then after like 3 months, they were like, hey, you know what, you're doing the job better than ever, and it's maybe a little less annoying than it was when you were in the office breathing down everyone's throat all the time. So maybe this is better for everyone. You seem happier in this sunny climate than you were in rainy Vancouver, and maybe your own personal well-being improving actually has this ripple effect on the way that you deliver as a professional as well.
Imagine that.
Imagine if people were able to just have good quality of life and be trustworthy enough to communicate their needs and get them met while they were an employee. Wild
Crazy
concept. Yeah.
It sounds crazy to like seek having your basic needs met in the most important relationship of your life, the one that sustains you and pays for your things, and that you deliver. You spend more time at your job than you do with your spouse, than you do in your bed. Typically, if you're someone like me who enjoys working 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day when the job requires it, identifying I need this to be happy, and I'm willing to leave the biggest relationship of my life that I spend the most time in to have that happen. I think having that happen in my personal relationships demonstrated to me that it was something that I could do in other areas of my life.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think of work-life balance as, oh, I can't work 10 hours a day. I have to limit it to 8 hours. And that, I find that's not really what it's about. For me, it's always about getting caught up in tying my value and self-worth to my job. So how have you explored yourself outside of work?
I mean, being a digital nomad is a big part of that, right? Adding novelty into your life is a very proven way to get it out of the dregs and make it more interesting and exciting. So suddenly being in new places and trying to speak a new language and meeting new people. I did a lot of dancing. I like to go out and just dance. I needed such a rebound from this stifled existence that I was living that I would just go places and I would move my body. I'm not a great dancer, and I would smile. And I remember I'd been living in Tulum for maybe a couple of months. That was my first stop because I'd been there before, and it was scary, but not too scary as I was growing my courage. And I remember this woman coming up to me. I was at this restaurant, and she said, "You're that guy that's always smiling. I know you. I see you around." And that was not me, right? Like my previous version of myself was like, I let my grumpiness and my anger and my resentment to all kinds of things get to me, but I would think about things that made me smile, and I would find things to be grateful for, and then I would just be smiling all the time. And that might sound insignificant, but in the wake of a lot of things going wrong, I say with air quotes, I developed a gratitude practice about the things that I was super happy about. And what made me really happy was choosing myself in little micro ways. Like, I'm going to sit at this cafe, I'm going to drink this cappuccino for no other reason than it makes me happy. I'm not going to feel guilty about it or how much it costs, or I'm just going to sit and I'm just going to enjoy it. And once I started choosing to be happy, I got happier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you can be a light for other people.
And I think that's kind of my life goal, really. I've had some big tragedies in my life, and I think we all have. You know, I lost my sister when she was 18, and I was 23 in a car crash. And I lost my father. I've been divorced. I've been through the pains of being human, but I never have failed to see just how blessed I am. And I think we live in a world where there's a lot of love starvation. There's a lot of people who don't see the light or can't be the light. And the best thing you can do is like flash those pearly whites, smile, be light. If that's in your weight or in your radiance, be light in the world. And that rubs off on people. And you'll find other people who are on that journey to bring a little lightness to a world.
That light's going to attract a bug that'll land on your eye, that'll attract your neighbor. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I find that the benefit of traveling too is being able to see yourself through someone else's eyes and like kind of see what your value is to a stranger. And also be in a place where the first question isn't, so what do you do? Like it is in LA and probably in Vancouver and other places like it, where someone is telling you right when they meet you, pretty much, I'm going to determine what I think about you based on your answer to this question.
Yeah. And it's such a boring question.
It's so boring.
It's such a boring answer.
And in so many other countries, it's not the first question and it doesn't matter. And so you start to learn, oh, what are all the other qualities that I bring to the table that make me worth talking to and worth knowing? And you can find a lot more confidence going into the world like that.
Yeah, when we contribute so much in such a challenging world, challenging economy, it's hard work to even have the energy to engage in the other faculties and interests of your life. And I certainly agree that there are a lot of other wonderful questions that you can ask to learn really interesting things about people and to find maybe a little more vulnerable conversation, because vulnerability is a place where a lot of bonding happens. And a safe question like, what do you do, doesn't expose what do you love or what do you not love, those kind of more complex
like,
questions.
what's your sense of humor? Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
something that helps you understand how their mind works. Or
Trying to find something that's not so statistical or categorical. How do you vote? Where do you work? What sport team do you like? Or we're trying to tribalize people almost instantly. But another thing I thought about when you said that was I was putting on a lot of faces, and it's very common, I think, for people to develop a series of kind of chameleon sort of skins and personas. I'm this person at work, I'm this person in my relationship, I'm this person with my best friend, I'm this person with my pals. And when I went away, another thing that I practiced was, I'm just me. I'm just me. These are the things I like. Like I said, dancing in a certain way, or if it was a certain kind of food, or laughing in a certain way I like to laugh. I was practicing authenticity in a brand new way that started by developing boundaries, saying no, learning what mattered to me. And I attracted this whole new group of friends that I never had to filter for anymore. I never had to change anything about who I was. And what shocked me was they liked me. I was like blown away. I was like, wait, I can just be me and that's okay. I don't have to microanalyze who you are, then do a slight adjustment to my personality in order to ensure compatibility. I can just be me. And if it doesn't work, that's fine. I'm still happy with who I am. But what I found was, more often than not, almost exclusively often, as I showed up as just authentic me on my journey, not knowing everything, living life in the moment, I developed really beautiful connections with almost everyone that I met. It was so much easier, so much less effort when you just relax. into your imperfect self, it gives you a lot more room to breathe.
We're all in our 30s, and it sounds like we were all pretty responsible kids and felt a big burden of responsibility in our 20s. I know for myself, I've loosened up so much as I've gotten older, which I think is great. Mm-hmm. And that's where fun is. That's where adventure is. That's where things like this happen and spontaneity lives. And I think it's important for people listening to know you don't have to be 21 to go travel around or to go backpacking or whatever. You can do it at any age. And just because you didn't do it when you were younger doesn't mean you missed your chance to do something like what Scotty's doing. And I think it's also okay to shed some of that learned or programmed responsibility or fulfillment of other people's expectations. I don't think you need to keep building it up. When I was younger, I think I just assumed I would always be taking on more and more and more responsibility.
And I think that we confuse responsibility with success. Like, we have to pile on responsibility in order to achieve more success. Mm-hmm. And what I found in the relationships that I've had and the people that I've met in the past few years, their sense of play, it equates to greater success. It brings them into contact with more interesting people. It develops greater relationships. It allows you more time to explore yourself and then find extra places to be authentic and to grow in certain ways. And if we try to like stranglehold, I was very much like you, paper route at 10. I had my kitchen job by 14. I was roofing at 16. I had 3 summer jobs and a work study in university. And the second I was done university, I started working in my career. And before this trip, I'd never taken more than 2 weeks off in my entire life, ever. I was so fixated on careerism and the Western ideology of working hard and bootstrapping. But the more I give myself time to play, to relax, the more I discover that I can do my work better, faster, I can be more efficient, and I can give myself more time to recharge so that when I get to my desk or my laptop, wherever my desk happens to be that day, I have the energy, I have the interest to get through my day a lot faster, to deliver a lot more, and it all just kind of comes together. I think there's a lot of cycle breaking that has to happen. We've been taught a lot from a generation that lived very differently.
Yes.
They weren't wrong when it happened for them, but trying to apply the Leave It to Beaver work lifestyle to 2023 is a fool's errand, and it's not the same. And if we're like, why isn't it working? I'm working hard every day. I'm working overtime. I got 2 jobs. Why is it not working? It was because it's not the same world at all. Your parents weren't wrong for trying to teach you that. And you can blame a lot of different people. You can say it's a school system, it's a political system. Life is changing too fast for a textbook or even for a parent. You have to trust yourself and just feel a lot more than just trying to do what you were told, I think.
Yeah, you have to be willing to carve your own path and continue to observe what's working and make your own way. You get to a certain point, especially in corporate, where you have the title you've always wanted, you have the access you always wanted, you have the perks you always wanted, and then you're still unfulfilled. And you're like, okay, well, now what? And then you realize that it's all a scam. This whole like plan of this is the education you're supposed to get, then you're supposed to go to work, then you're supposed to climb the ladder. Like, it doesn't really get you to any special destination. So, that's when you kind of realize, what do I actually want? And I have to break down all of my previous notions to figure that out.
Yeah, because it doesn't even get you, even if you want to just replicate your parents' life. I just want to have a house and 2 kids and food on the table and be happy and go on a vacation. Doing what they did won't get you that anymore. So it's a really disruptive time, and we have to learn new ways. And I think the other thing is we have to be patient while we're doing that, because there's a lot of anxiety. Why aren't I here yet? Why haven't I achieved this yet? I feel like I'm doing all of the right things. really finding a way to be just patient in the process of discovering what's going to work for you, finding ways to lean into the things that help you thrive, and then flipping the script on what materialism is. We're really caught up now in money's going to make us happy, in an economy that is inflating so rapidly that you will never catch up to it. So if you're going to tie all of your worth and all of your value and all of your happiness to a number, I mean, you could do it. You could grind and slog and whatever. But I think the more we evaluate, hey, what really makes me happy is laughing with my friends, is the sun on my face, is doing yoga, whatever it could be for you. Who knows? Happiness is going to be tied to something completely non-material. At the end of the day, once your basic needs are met, we need to lean into that other subjective reality of happiness.
Well, I think being present is a huge part of it. It's like, what will make me happy today? I feel like I spent so many years in service of a future that's not promised anyway. Like doing this for a rainy day, or if I do this, this, and this, then in 5 years I'll be here. And it's like, well, what about today? What about tomorrow? And I've had a lot of people close to me pass away tragically at different ages, but most of them much too young. And it's like, if you just spend all your time thinking about, worrying about, working for some future version of yourself that you might not even get to, it's not a great way to spend your time.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of curious that your mom was the impetus for your move to Mexico, given that you grew up similar to the way we did with traditional expectations. So why do you think your mom had this idea?
I think mother instinct kicked in for her because at the end of the day, she wants me to be happy. And sometimes we put on such a face for our families. We never want them to know we're hurting. And they have their own contrived ideas of what happiness should look like. And that's not their fault. But I think that's what it was. She could feel it. She could feel it in my voice. I was like quivering. I was on the precipice of tears as I talked to her. And she was like, I know what my son needs.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a part of their generation that is excited for us in a way, or is living vicariously. I mean, we are getting to live a life they didn't get to live. And yeah, they got the white picket fence maybe, but we're in Bali. I mean, my parents never would have dreamed of that. And so I know I was really scared to tell my parents I quit my job with no plan a few weeks ago, because of what they would think. You know, they would think I'm being irresponsible or whatever. They're like my conscience, right? In my mind, kind of always pulling me back to what is supposed to be right. What am I supposed to be doing? But their reaction was completely different. They were like, great, we'll take care of your dog.
Right? We build up these narratives in our head that are so scary that if I do this, these people are going to be so hurt or so disappointed. And really, no one cares that much what you do and what you're going to do. And they're your parents. They know you're going to figure it out.
And the next thing you know, my mom is like, so you're going to be sending us pictures, right? We're going to want to see videos. And
my mom was so happy when I told her I was coming here. I've been here 5 times, the first 3 times with my mom. But yeah, a couple weeks ago when I was like, I'm going to go to Bali, she was like, that's great. I'm so happy for you. It's going to be so fun. Because they know you just got to break out of the rut sometimes. And it's been a tough few years for everybody.
I know we all get those thoughts in our heads of, I'm going to disappoint this person. But even if you do, even if on the off chance you actually do and it makes you happier, that's still a move you got to make, because at the end of the day, it's you living this life, and other people are responsible for their own happiness. And the only way you can be that light that shines for other people is when you figure it out for yourself, you own your own happiness, and you take control of your life in whatever ways you can. And I'm sure a lot of people have experienced, well, that doesn't sound very responsible, or that is other people's own ego hurt in that moment that they couldn't make that decision. And it happens very subconsciously. And they'll try and like poke a hole in your tire a little bit, and they don't even mean it. They're just shook. They're just surprised that you're doing something they didn't have the courage to do. People's reactions to you is always a mirror. When you respond negatively, you're seeing something that you're missing from yourself that you desire.
So if you find you're being that person who's popping someone else's tire, then you have to do some inner work.
And that, I think that was me, though, is like...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
When you're unhappy,
totally.
yeah.
I would never take a vacation. I would work so hard that I would see people having fun, and
be
I would
like,
resent it. I
Well,
would
where
resent,
are they going in
Yeah.
life?
How can they afford to do that?
They'll never make director.
Like they're never going to get ahead. Oh, that someone else must have paid for it, or come up with all these dirty stories to tell myself because I was mad that I wasn't there yet, that I hadn't figured out how to unlock that part of myself. And so anytime I would see anyone else doing it, I would get petty over it. And my ego would jump in there and be like, let's stir this pot up in a way that makes it so you don't have to look or stare at yourself, sort of thing. If I find myself being jealous now, I always check it right away. I go, okay, you're jealous of this person because they've got bigger arms than you. We're both human beings. If you wanted stronger arms, go to the gym more. That's not his fault. If it's in my career and I see someone who's doing better than me in my line of work, instead of being like, they don't deserve it, I deserve it, I'll be like, what can I do to deserve what this person has? You have to keep coming back to being in control of your own life.
And those moments tell you that you've built your ego on a house of cards where someone flying by living their best life can just easily blow it all down.
Right.
And so you have to kind of rebuild your ego or your sense of self from an actual place of integrity. So that's what we think you should do. What do you think? Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you need advice? DM us on Instagram at much.needed.advice or email us at muchneededadvicepod@gmail.com.
Bye.
How do we become one voice?